Hello, everybody. We're going to wait to see who shows up. If you haven't liked, share, share this out, and subscribe if you haven't already. Well, the topic tonight is about why places are not really haunted. Sometimes it have to do with tales, stories, and news, legends, and all that. Sometimes history of the land that a building sits on, there's like no written record. Sorry about that. Of any battles in the past, burial sites, you, you know, stuff like that. Whether sometimes destroy or cover burial grounds and all that. Could we think there's been Native American burial grounds or that around these places? We don't know. Could that they be haunt the spirits of the resting places of the ancestors back then are unsettling or unhappy what's going on? We don't know. Sometimes when these places get bought by new owners who don't know much about the history of the places, they heard around town a lot of these tales of what happened in news articles and things like that, and they think the places that supposed to be haunted, it's not really haunted. Like like murder. The murder happened in the history of the house may not be in that house or place the building be on. It used to probably a building that was burned down before, or it could have been a mile away. And that is sometimes it get incorporated with the house that's supposed to be haunted. And sometimes some of these things are made up. Like the owners made things up so that they could earn little money for what do you say for ghost hunting tourism. Like rented the place out saying these places are haunted. But really, are they really haunted? We don't know. And sometimes the people are get disappointed that nothing happens at these places, and some of the stories don't match up. And one thing is that when people do go investigate the place or stay at the supposed haunted bed and breakfast and that, they don't do research into the history of the town, the haunted, supposed to be haunted places and all that. And sometimes they do get nothing for their effort. Yeah. Right, Angela. And sometimes it may not be the land the building sit on. It could be a land adjacent to that land. That someone brought something over from that land over to that land for a person. Let's say that. And it gets, yeah. Or some people have the gift to attract people and they don't know it. Or the gift to attract spirits. Yeah. Right, Angela. And the one thing I pointed out about the Hinsdale house, I think there's like a portal or something that draw. There's something in that house that draw these spirits from other places there, which is why we could have different type of stories that don't match up the history of the place or town or the land, because sometimes when a Catholic priest went to, let's say, bless the house or cleanse the house, supposed to get rid of the evil or the spirits and all that's going on, the evil. It may not be the demons or all that. It could be elementals that are upset. Spirit elementals like the earth elementals, like the gnomes or that. It could be fae folks that could probably be doing that. You don't see these fae folks like fairies and all that unless you are gifted to see them or they allowed you to see them. And sometimes some of these owners and that probably bring up all these stories too. You know, that doesn't match. And it's kind of be worn out to warn people out there. I know there's lots of paranormal investigators out there or researchers are not doing a research on the history of these places. And then they go away disappointed or come up with bad info, or there's some of these spirits there that like to play games, and repeat what the owner of the place said going on. And we have to remember, think, do research to make sure these places are real. And sometimes some of these owners just want to get the money. You know, it's not. It's this is more of a beware of what's going out there. The some people said this is really haunted place and all that, but but you don't know because even the investigators, paranormal investigators, may have a spirit follow them from another place there to make it more active. Like we know that some of the investigators did get attacked, have attachments to them, which does cause issues. And probably some people probably need some some of these people probably need like what do you people who have the gifts who can read what's going on at these places. And I seen see some on some lives that some people go into a trance or that because they got drawn by a spirit that wanted them to go over to some place and then they don't even know why they went over there. And sometimes that these places is should be investigated, debunk what's not true at these places, and find that evidence of the truth. When we get all the evidence and all that about these places, we could probably find out the real truth if a place is haunted or not. Okay, let me see. Anybody's welcome to come up on panel if they want to talk. What I see is that sometimes you need to be careful at these places. We don't know what's real and what's not real. And we sometimes see some people downright make things up at times during the sessions and things like that. Would the places people would what do you say? People might have to think about other things there. Elemental spirits, not demons. we know elemental spirits like around woods and all that. But if you hold on a bit. I think I got rid of the bug. Yeah, I got rid of it. Okay. Now, where am I? We have to, like I said, we have to look up the history of the place, the land, the history of the town, the history of the county, any news of recent deaths in the area, like issue like at the Hinsdale house, about 2 deaths, a death because one brother murdered another brother. That the truth about that was there was a murder of one brother towards another brother, but it wasn't in that house. It was several blocks or whatever, how many miles it was on the land adjacent to the building. And the thing is, the tail of that issue was that it got mixed up with other tales around the area, and it kind of got blended into that one place, which wasn't really true. So we have to look carefully about these places, the history, the land, try and get a better reading of the place, be more vigilant, listening to the tales, try and debunk what could be true and not true, and things like that. And if you notice what's going on these places and these videos and all that, you could see the different people have different experiences. And sometimes some people do make things up to make things look like it's haunted. I'm not going to name names or anything. We probably know we're channels that do kind of make things up to attract people to watch those videos. And one thing we should know is that haunted places is not really haunted. Like the claims is this place is really super haunted. That's the question that we need to ask. We have they had the in real life these places, it's not like Hollywood. The Hinsdale house, they use all the stories from that place to make that movie, and that movie was completely off. And it was bad. What else is we're going to do about these places? Sometimes the spirits don't come out and say, but then they do come out if there's the right person that they want to communicate with. And haunted places is and the thing is, do we really know what's true or not? That's the question. You could check with the local reporters and that to make sure what's true or not. So we do need to really look at these places. Sometimes when I do my when I did um anthropology class, the cultural aspect, it's usually the tales of the stories of these places around the world. It's usually to scare people, to entertain people, and stuff like that. Sometimes the tale and the stories that be handed down from generation to generation changes. So we have to look at it that way. Is it bad to investigate these places? No. Places? No. I'm not saying you don't have to stop doing them. I just said be aware, keep an eye open, do some research. Don't get hoodwinked about these stories. Because you don't know what's going to happen at these places, or what you will not get from these places. Sometimes you get jokester. And when you do, hi ZB, you too, and what you get in these buildings may not be what you expected. I know we have tales of ghost stories about certain houses in our local towns as kids, when we were kids. Sometimes they're just stories. And like I said, these places may not be haunted as you expect them to be. And spirits may or may not be bad, or you have some that joke around and trick and repeat what the owner of the site said about the stories. And sometimes paranormal people get caught up thinking it's as evidence, but we have to kind of debunk each claim that the spirits say, because the spirits could be hoodwinking too, and ghosts and all that. Most of them are just sigh anyway and won't do anything. Some of them are just watching over you, or yeah. Yeah. And some of the orphanage and all that, it does come out. Some of the stories may be true and some are not. But there's been cases that children were like CB. That's what I'm talking about. The places are haunted, but not really haunted. About the, like what you said, are true about the bunch of kids dying in the fire. It's something that I've been trying to say all along. There there's probably another place around there that probably had a bunch of kids dying in a fire. Could be a family home with lots of kids that died. And then it got incorporated into the orphanage you're talking about. Yeah, I should. I probably would look that up and see if other people have talk about that place. Yeah, yeah. The history of these places is what I'm talking about for people to do their full research on these places before going to investigate and all that. It is that way you could debunk these things. Yeah, that's that's what happened at the Hinsdale house that I was talking about. They're getting the story mixed up with other stories about a kid got killed by a saw on another farm next to the land of the Hinsdale and all the other stories of the deaths in town at Hinsdale and everything like that, and it got incorporated, mixed into the Hinsdale house. And like I said, everybody needs to do thorough research, like the Hinsdale house, the Gore orphanage, the penitentiaries, the infirmary for infir I can't pronounce them. Medical places that they hold people at and things like that. Hospitals, you name it. These there's usually a lot of story because sometimes they're adding more stuff to it than it really needs to be, and it and and it will catch up to these places that look. Here's what's true, and here's what's not true. This is the real history of these places, and this is not the history of the places. The local reporter who lives in that area of Hinsdale pointed out what was told about the place was not true. The only thing that was true was the car accident. And that kind of helped. That was the only truth there was. Is Hinsdale haunted? Yeah. By what's haunted that place, nobody knows. It could have been brought there by the family that had the problems at that place that called for the Catholic priest to cleanse the place. Hello, Alcom. How are you doing? And with that, with the places that go on with these places, like I said, it could be spirits that been brought along. Hey Kay, how you doing? Uh, the spirits are attached to the family that moved in there. Spirits attached to an item, a portal like a mirror that bring the spirits there. Because if you could find where if it if the family was being attached to that brought the spirits there, or the someone in the family, yeah, or somebody in that family. Well, the problem is, Arkham, the yeah, the Goat Man CB. I think it's a recycle. Hi, Mike. I think it's the recycle of the Greek myths of the what do you of the satire, the half man and half goat in the Greek mythology. It's a recycled story of that, and like I like I said, where you do haunted. I have to say this at the Hinsdale house. There was actually they said there's from what I could tell there was no history of hauntings there before the family moved in the early 70s, and that's when the activity started when the family moved in. There's somebody in that family that have the gift, the spirits follow them there, or they have something in their possession that's an attachment, or they have a mirror that have a portal, where spirits could come through from other places. And it's probably still there to this day. Or there's a portal somewhere there. Hi, Colleen. How you doing? So, true, Beth, true. And and like what CB and me said that sometimes the truth about these places may not be true, you know, like all the history of the deaths on the surrounding land. And also, like what CB said about that Gore orphanage, that the fire, the kids that died in the fire was happened to in the school that burned down with everyone inside. So stories get mixed up from one place and combined into another. And that's something that, like I said, people need to do research before going into these places. That way you could debunk what's true and what's not true. So you could present what's true and everything like that, because that's the true history of the place. Like Beth knows about attachments. really, really attached to the dolls he has. It's something that I talk about. There could be attachment to a belonging of the family that was brought from one place to another. So that attachment of that spirit don't belong in that Hillsdale house history. It belonged someplace else. That way, we have to ask more questions about these spirits. Who they are, where they come from. Ah, he's being mischievous, huh? Stealing all those cheese nips. and like I said, these places do need to find out where the spirits really come from, who they are. uh, who they are, where they come from. Ah, okay, Beth. We have to ask who they are, where they come from, how they died, how old were they, and all that, so that we could actually pinpoint where that history of those spirits came from. That way we could find out what's happening, why those spirits, how the spirits got there, who, what, where, when, why. That's the questions we need to find out about these places and these spirits. Sometimes the places are not haunted, or they're being over exaggerated about how haunted they are, and things like that. Like what we said, we need to find out the truth about these places, about the spirits and all that, the history of the building. Yeah, sometimes spirits die and they attach themselves onto something, and then once they go from one place to another, they unattached. And are there the things we need to think of what we do to do research and history is to find out how where the spirits came from, the true history, like I did the life of the Hinsdale house about the death of the kid from a sawmill accident from the land adjacent to the Hinsdale place. The two brothers, one murdered his other brother in the 90s or early 2000s in the local town. About a woman being hanged. There was no woman hung herself in a tree on the Hinsdale property or around that area. So could it be planted by the elemental? Yeah. Yeah, sometimes some are residue, and then you may find some that may not be residue. We discovered one at Beth's place that she thought was a residue, but I saw it differently, and it turned out, what was it? He's guarding you from the elementals or something, Beth. And then I saw our grandfather. You thought there was a residue. Yeah. Or moving stuff. Yeah. There was times at, like like at the Fairfield County Infirmary. I got the picture of a woman said her name was Elizabeth. And it turned out there was a patient named Elizabeth. And there, as she came forward now in front and center for her history, like she wanted her history be told or tell. And I think sometimes some of these investigators don't have somebody have the gift who could actually help tell their stories. And it's kind of good history to find out what these people are these spirits are, who they are, what happened to them, things like that. Sometimes there are spirits there that don't belong there too. So like I said, sometimes you have to research to make sure if the place is haunted or not. If it is haunted, say this is the type of haunted it is. Sometimes if you overdo it and say this place is really haunted more than any place else, it kind of like you want to try and attract people to come to that place so you could make money. Hi, Terry. I have a feeling that's what some of these places are from these owners. Look at how much some of these places cost to do investigations at now. It's becoming very expensive. Well, what was it? $1,600 for Penthurst Penitentiary or something? The it's really they're getting really expensive, especially for the small YouTube channels. And I think what they're doing is now they're mostly doing it for the money than for the actual history of the places. So that's why they're going to do a little exaggeration on these places to attract people. That's why you need to do the research first before going into there so you know what you're stepping. Yeah. You know, sometimes some spirits might be are harmless, and some that could be like somebody to guide you. And and if you think about these places and see the videos or live streams, what was ones that have too much activity while others don't have much activity. Good, good. And one thing we need to do is look into these places more thoroughly. The history, the research, because if you don't do that and then you come away with a bunch of evidence and the evidence turned out to be not true, then it would make you look bad. you have to look at the history of these places. Then that way you don't be spreading information that's not true about the places. Do your due diligence and think on how to proceed forward onto these next places. Are these videos on here bad? No. We could go out and say, look, I think that some of this may be not true because let's look at all the history surrounding the place. Then we could debunk what's true and what's not true because we know that some spirits like to lie too, so or give you bad info or that is negative. That's where you could be more prepared to understand what to ask for questions and try and ask, where did you die if it's not here? Because, like I said, spirits could move or are attracted to something. Or you have to debunk what the history of the places and see where these spirits came from. If they come from the land next door or things like that, adjacent, then we could actually get golly. Yeah. Yeah. The thing, like I was saying, the places need to be scrutinized thoroughly to get the truth out there about these places. Because the important part of these investigations, you have to know or the history of the place. No, you could say it's haunted, but not really haunted, Like, this is a haunted house, but it's not really that haunted like being said it is, There mild activity and then there's really active. And some people want to make it place sound like this active when it's down here. So it depends on how people describe how really haunted a place is. And I said it's not that haunted. Yeah. spiritual activity, but not really haunted up there. And from what I could tell from the history of the Hinsdale house, they had the Catholic priest cleanse it 3 times and it didn't work. If it wasn't a demon. Hi, Knobs. Yeah. 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 There, like I said, there's some people, owners try to say, this is really haunted more than this other place and all that. That's why I said, yes, there are haunted houses, but not what they're saying it is. You know what I mean? And like I said, we have to look at the history of the places and the stories that being told. Like I did the research on the Hinsdale house and found that the stories that were being told by the owner were not true, because the story of the deaths that happened in the Hinsdale house there wasn't on that land. It was adjacent in the town or next town over that got pushed. All that those stories and history of what happened was combined into the one place, which wasn't true. And I got one investigator mad at me for yeah, it made me haunted, but sometimes it's not what somebody called demon activity in the house. What me and others saw in there on one live stream, I won't name who it was. We saw a shapeshift. Yeah. Yeah. They're haunted, but it's being over exaggerated a bit somewhat because of the word of deaths and all that. That's why I said do the research of the place, the history around the town, the land, and the county, and the next town over. Then you could look at the overall, and then you could ask questions. Let's say the two brothers want, and you could ask the dead brother spirit, how did you die? Who are you? Did you die here? And all that. But if investigators don't do that, do the research, then they can't get the spirits to answer those type of questions. Yeah. And what I said, the shape-shifted thing, that spirit that me and others saw at the Hillsdale place, I looked it up. and it was an elemental spirit. Those could be pretty nasty at times. That's where the haunted could be part of. Excuse me. Have to sneeze. Like like I said, the elemental could be very active. It's, we have to look at it. Did something stir that elemental up for it to be there? We have to look at it. Okay, if place is really haunted, really haunted, is it a human spirit, a demon, or is it an elemental? And there are some places that I see nuns investigated. It had, it could be an elemental could have moved into those places because of broken down windows, doors, floor, you name it. Or they could come easily come in. The sometimes these elementals are called faithful, gnomes, fairies, things like that. There's the it, which is the tree spirits, gnomes, trolls, brownies, pudrunchies, fairies, elves, things like that. The air spirits are fairies, and air spirits like genies, water spirits like mermaids and nymphs, things like that. The fire is like the salamander, the dragons, things like that. And if we look further, some of these elementals could be chaotic and shapeshift when they're angry and could make a place really haunted. And if it's a human spirit where the place is real, really fixed up, like the infirmaries and all that. Yeah, be prepared, Terry. Ask very important questions. That way we could distinguish who they are and all that. Uh, like what I was thinking, if I was going, well, was the, because sometimes the activity may not be human spirits or all that. It could be demonic, or it may be elemental, which is could be the gnomes and all that. Pogroges, fae folks. Like I said, the fae folks don't show themselves unless they want to be seen or you have the ability to see them. And that way we would know the true history of the place and the surrounding area. Instead of saying all these people died here when they're not. They're not. Because as it is, spirits do travel from one place to another. And they do. And they usually be attracted to something. And that way we would know the true nature of these spirits, where they came from, how they died. If they didn't die here at this place, where did they die at? Etc. etc. Yeah. And sometimes may not be the cases in some cases. Like I said, that boy who died in a sawmill accident on land, that wasn't a happy time for him. Maybe he was friends to somebody over at Hinsdale and felt happiest there, playing and all that as kids. Yeah. Yeah. The case of the that spirit of that boy that claimed he was killed in the sawmill at Hinsdale, it's actually on an adjacent land. And that wasn't his home. Unless a spirit pretended to be that boy. Try and trick people. Remember, there's tricksters, and these elementals can trick people into believing. And like, yeah, and sometimes we don't know unless something dragged those spirits there too and holding them. That's another thing to think about too. Yeah, yeah, they are. I I didn't sense any of the spirits over there at the Hinsdale, but I did sense that creature, that being. It was that elemental was making that place tense and yeah. What I'm talking about is that what I was feeling at the Hinsdale house was the it was more like tense, watching, waiting to pounce. Yeah, not true, Beth. Not all are like that. Are it's only the ones that have their like home destroyed, like a tree elemental. Yeah, residue is leftover energy. And what I'm saying, trees are usually home for fairies and elves and squirrels and birds, you name it. And if the elemental is a tree spirit and somehow somebody build a tree house in it, yeah, yeah, Manji. Let's leave them gifts and all that, from what I heard. Make amends and talk to them. Ask them permission and all that. With that said, remember, do the history, do the research. Make sure the order, all the stories you heard, if they're true or not, be armed and be prepared to ask questions. And with that, I have to say peace. Since I'm going call it for the night, I would say peace, love, show kindness to others, stay positive, help others, help others, and be safe. And may the good light smile upon you all. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.